Hello and welcome back to another episode of Lost Codex Legends. My name is Jesse, and today we're talking about one particular character who has had a very profound impact on main characters in the current expansion. I'm of course talking about the Lord Admiral himself, Daelin Proudmoore. Now Daelin Proudmoore was one of the most influential Alliance characters in the old Warcraft games. And today we're going to talk about his entire storyline throughout Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3 and the small but important role that Daelin plays in Battle for Azeroth. There may or may not be some Daddy Daelin memes. For those of you who don't know, Robert Baratheon, aka Bobby B, is played by Mark Addy. And Mark Addy is the one who voice acts Daelin Proudmoore in Battle for Azeroth. So of course if there's Bobby B memes, there has to be Daelin P memes? No, Daddy Daelin memes? I don't know, something. Daelin memes. And I can't promise you that a couple more won't show up. Now before I dive into Daelin Proudmoore's biography and everything that he did in his whole story in Warcraft 3, let's dive into who he was as a person, as a father, as a husband. Daelin Proudmoore was the beloved husband of Catherine Proudmoore, and together they had 3 children, Derek Proudmoore, Jaina Proudmoore, and Tandred Proudmoore. Now, Derek was substantially older than Jaina and Tandred, enough that he was able to fight alongside of his father during certain conflicts that I'll get to in just a bit. Now, obviously being the Lord of Kul Tiras, there is a certain responsibility and pressure put on Derek, being the oldest son, and Jaina being the only daughter that he has. We do know that there was a very loving relationship between Jaina and her father, with the song Daughter of the Sea, the original version of Daughter of the Sea, as we see in Jaina's Nightmare.
Ahoy, ahoy, sweet daughter of the seas.
Ahoy, this child be mine. The Admiral's girl, his whole entire world, for as long as stars do shine.
Promise you'll come back?
I'll weather every storm if I know you are waiting for me.
Time to go, Jaina.
I love you, Papa.
Come topside, sweetheart.
A little quick fact about the youngest son of Daelin, Tandred was initially not canon at all. Well, he started off as canon in the RPG, then was destroyed from lore because RPG was considered not canon except for certain parts, but Metzen said that Tandred was definitely not canon, and then Blizzard turned around and recanonized him, which is fair because it is their story, it is their lore, and if anyone can pick and choose what to canonize and what to decanonize, it's Blizzard. And given that Jaina never had any contact with the people of Kul Tiras, there was no need for her to mention her brother over the years, so it makes sense. So we have Derek Proudmoore, Jaina Proudmoore, and Tandred Proudmoore, and Daelin's wife, Catherine Proudmoore. Now, Daelin Proudmoore's story starts in the Second War. Obviously, Daelin had some sort of childhood. Daelin grew up in Tiragard Sound, grew up in Borealis. We don't know much about his younger days, before the Second War. We don't even know much about the First War. What we do know is that Daelin Proudmoore was the Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras during the First War. He was the Patriarch of the House of Proudmoore, alongside the House of Waycrest, Stormsong, and Ashvane. And when the Orcs threatened to invade Lordaeron, Daelin was among those who answered the call by Taranis Menethil II and Anduin Lothar for that emergency legendary meeting that formed the Grand Alliance. And Daelin, being the Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras, the island nation, he was given the title of Grand Admiral of the entire Alliance fleet. Lordaeron had its ships, presumably Gilneas had its ships, Stormwind had very little ships at this point, and of course Kul Tiras had the best of the best. Under the control of Daelin Proudmoore, the Alliance Navy moved to intercept the Horde fleet near the island of Zul'Dare, which is located in Barradin Bay, or near Barradin Bay. It's not actually in-game. Despite its name, Zul'Dare has nothing to do with trolls. We don't know why it's called that, but This island, or rather the intercepting of the Horde Navy here, happened just before the Battle for Hillsbrad, which is one of the most iconic first battles of the Second War. Due to Daelin's prowess at sea, and likely due to the superior nature of most of the ships in the fleet, which would have been of Terracian nature, the Alliance Navy decimated the Horde fleet. It is almost laughable and hard to fathom how devastating this battle was against the Orcish Horde. They hadn't even made landfall for the majority of their forces, and yet this fleet, consisting of Gilnean ships and Lordaeron ships and mostly Kul Tiras ships, absolutely decimated. And in fact, it was almost a cruel fight. The water was bloody with Orcish limbs and corpses, and Daelin thought, this is it. This is where we can stop this menace before they even get to land. This is, you come into my house, you come into my territory on the sea, no, you're done. Daelin got a little bit full of himself in terms of how easily the Horde could be beaten, and the Horde come in and prove them wrong. Unbeknownst to Daelin, or really anyone in the Alliance, the Orcish Horde had enslaved red dragons. They threatened to torture Alexstrasza, who they had prisoner, and because of this, the dragons were forced to do the Horde's bidding, and the dragons were the perfect weapon to use against the Alliance fleets. And so Daelin was forced to retreat as he had no means to combat these dragons. Dragons being used as a weapon against wooden boats is not a fair fight. No matter how many Tide Sages bless your ship, Daelin's fleet, or any Alliance fleet for that matter, couldn't really compete, and so Daelin was forced to retreat. Later on, Daelin finds a way to combat the threat in the form of the Wildhammer Dwarves. The Wildhammers, led by Kurgan Wildhammer and his Griffin Riders, show up and are actually able to stand toe-to-toe or wing-to-wing with the dragons. They might think smaller griffins against dragons. Not surprisingly, the griffins are extremely agile, and with their stormhammers and the swift maneuvering, they're able to harass and actually do some decent damage against these red dragons, who again are being held against their will. But of course the dwarves don't know that, and the griffins don't know that, so an enemy is an enemy. Now, Daelin and the Alliance Navy were able to overtake the Horde fleet near the island of Crestfall. Crestfall was actually one of Kul Tiras' many neighboring islands, one of their territories, but was occupied by the Orcish Horde and used as a naval base. As you can tell in this picture from Chronicle, the battle for Crestfall did not go well for the Horde. The red dragons are prominent here in this battle, and the Wildhammer dwarves have improved their tactics over the course of several battles, and now are able to repel the dragons even more. Now, if you thought the battle for Zul'Dare was a resounding victory for the Alliance, it is nothing on the battle for Crestfall. The Orcish Horde was decimated in this battle. It was absolutely obliterated. Chronicle Volume 2's description of the battle for Crestfall is an absolute gore fest for the Horde. Thousands upon thousands of orcs are launched into the water, their ships sinking, them either drowning or dying from cannon fire or pistol fire or any kind of fire. And although they did have the dragons, this was not a victorious moment for the Horde. Now, however, despite winning this battle and it being a tremendous success for the Alliance, this is where Daelin Proudmoore suffers one of his greatest losses. In the Third Fleet was the commanding officer Daelin Proudmoore, Daelin's oldest son, and unfortunately, the Red Dragons completely destroy the Third Fleet, and Daelin with it. Daelin dies here during this part, and there's some descriptions of how he dies, whether he's fully incinerated or, sees only fire and then blacks out. This comes up later in Battle for Azeroth, but we're not going to talk about that. So here, Daelin suffers a horrible personal loss, the loss of his eldest son against the Orcish Horde. And it is in this moment, he already despises the Orcish Horde, right? The orcs don't show themselves as noble creatures fighting for a good cause. They have razed Stormwind and burnt it to the ground. Thousands, civilians, soldiers, men, women, and children are dead at the hands of the Orcish Horde, at the hands of this monster, Orgrim Doomhammer. Monster to the Alliance, right? Daelin sees that. Daelin sees the ferocity in which they are fighting here at sea. They are using dragons. You know, they don't know the circumstances of behind it, but if Daelin knew that they were torturing dragons, well, that's another reason to hate the orcs. And now on top of it all, they've killed his son. So this is a defining moment for Daelin. This is where now he is vindicated. Now he is justified in his hate. Everything that he saw the orcs as has been validated. They are truly monsters not welcome on this world. In the wreckage of the Third Fleet, he doesn't find his son or many survivors, but he does find agents of Aiden Perinold, who were sent to aid the Horde, and these guys are proof, evidence of Perinold's grand betrayal to the Alliance when he helps the Horde. So Daelin takes them prisoner. After the Second War, Daelin is present at the meeting in Netherguard Keep and informs the Alliance army about the Horde's movements when they're looking for the artifacts, when they're looking for different artifacts for Ner'zhul's secret evil plan. Later, he's present in Stormwind after Stormwind's been rebuilt when Arthas becomes a paladin. And at a later point in time, in fact much later, he was on the jury for Tyrion Fordring's trial regarding Eitrig and the fact that he defended Eitrig and saved Eitrig, this lone orc hermit that lived in the wilds. Tyrion was put on trial, and one of the judges was Daelin Proudmoore. And it's interesting because you've got Tyrion, who is one of the original paladins. He has sworn this oath to the light. And remember, paladins were first made to combat the orcish menace, and yet here Tyrion is defending an old orc because he saw Eitrig for something beyond a monster. But then you have Daelin, who's on the jury, and he's just flabbergasted. This man, this hero before him, a paladin of the Silver Hand, is defending an orc? How ridiculous is that? Daelin, there's not a lot of commentary from Daelin, but I can imagine the thoughts going on in his head, thinking like, really? Do you not remember Stormwind? Do you not remember what happened in Quel'Thalas, the gates of Lordaeron? Like, do you not remember any of these things? No doubt Daelin's terrible bias against orcs was something not in Tyrion's favor. We're going to skip ahead after the Second War. Presumably, at some point after the war was over, he has a funeral service for his son Derek. Here's a picture of younger Daelin with little child Jaina mourning Derek's loss. And even years after the Second War, he remains true and loyal to the Alliance and Lordaeron with his fleet, defending the oceans, hunting pirates, doing what sea boat people do best. Now, because he is one of the major leaders of the Alliance, he allows his daughter Jaina to study abroad, to go to Dalaran to study under Archmage Antonidas, the leader of the Kirin Tor and leader of Dalaran. Lady Catherine, Daelin's wife, has to convince him to let Jaina go and study outside of Kul Tiras, especially after losing Derek. Daelin's a little bit protective, but off she goes to study in Dalaran, and that's where Jaina's story begins. Now, of course, during this time, Thrall has freed the orcs from the internment camps, and Thrall wants to go west, and so he steals several ships from South Shore. Daelin no doubt hears about this and gathers a small fleet and chases after them. No doubt, had Daelin and his small fleet caught up with Thrall and the ships that he had stolen, Thrall or Grom wouldn't have made it to Kalimdor. But fate had other plans, as a storm arrived, scattering both Daelin's fleet and Thrall's fleet. Now, several of ships from both sides crash-landed on a set of islands, and that's where Thrall meets the Darkspear, and some of Daelin's forces attack. But Daelin escapes that situation and at some point returns to Kul Tiras. There's a point when Lordaeron and Dalaran have both been destroyed, and Daelin receives news of it. He's absolutely mortified because his daughter was in either Lordaeron or Dalaran, both of which are gone. So you can imagine the fear and the horror at which not only is he unsure whether or not his daughter survived amongst the thousands of rotting, undead, lifeless zombies that are now roaming the land, but both of which were his allies during the Second War. He knew the people of Lordaeron, he knew the people of Dalaran, they'd all worked together, and both of them had crumbled into nothing. So Daelin is now one of the strongest and most prominent forces in the Alliance, because he still has his fleet, presumably some of Lordaeron's fleet, but all of Kul Tiras' fleet, and he heads across the ocean. At some point before he heads across the ocean, when the Third War is at its highest peak, Bolvar Fordragon sent his daughter Talia to live on the island of Kul Tiras to escape the danger on the mainland. He sent her to live with the Proudmoores, and Daelin himself chooses Cyrus Crestfall, one of his most trusted knights, who, as far as we know, has no connection to the island of Crestfall, to be her guardian. So Talia is a ward for House Proudmoore and raised by Cyrus Crestfall, chosen specifically by Daelin Proudmoore. Now, at some point after chasing Thrall and Grom and getting harassed by that storm, Daelin returned home to Kul Tiras, and he rallies the fleet and he goes to Kalimdor to search for his daughter and to search for survivors. There has to be survivors.
When she did flee across the ocean deep, the Admiral followed west. What else but sail to save a daughter's life and pray just a breath.
And when he arrives, he notices that the humans are fairly close to Horde territory, and he knows what kind of monsters the Horde truly is. After all, he had seen all of the horrors that they had committed during the Second War. He begins to raid and assault coastal settlements of the Horde, and they fight back, but they also retreat to Theramore. And there he enters the city of Theramore and finds his daughter, Jaina, accompanied by Rexxar, Rokan, and Chen Stormstout. Now, Jaina tries to explain to her dad that this is not the same Orcish horde that attacked during the First and Second War. But Daelin won't listen. Now, to Daelin, Jaina is just a naive child. Daelin is completely unaware of what she learned in Dalaran, what she saw in Lordaeron with the Scourge and the Plague, with Arthas. He's completely unaware of her battle at Mount Hyjal. It really makes Daelin sort of ignorant to all of her experiences and what she's become, but that doesn't mean Daelin's the naive one, because Daelin is a fully grown military commander. He has seen a life of hardship, from fighting the worst possible threats at sea, pirates and the like, to the Orcish horde and ogres and trolls. It's not like Daelin's life was suddenly just peaceful up until the Second War. Daelin is a politician. Daelin is an admiral at sea. He has seen a life full of experiences and hardships. And to someone like Daelin, looking at the Orcish horde as anything but monsters after what he himself lost, after the thousands dead at Stormwind and during the Second War, and how many elves were killed during the Second War, it's hard for him to see them as anything else. In the same way that they see trolls, as barbaric, bloodthirsty, horrible monsters, Daelin sees orcs as that too. They're all a group of mongrels. They're all a group of animals. And he can't see anything past that. And unfortunately, his daughter can. And she can't get through to him. Daelin refuses to listen, and this line here that I want to show you is actually taken right from Warcraft 3. It's been re-recorded for Battle for Azeroth, of course, starring Bobby B, Daddy Daelin. And it's some of his lines and Jaina's lines taken right from their encounter when he first enters Theramore and has everyone arrested.
You have always been naive, my daughter.
I won't let you do it, Father. You don't understand.
I understand more than you suspect, my dear. Perhaps in time you will too. Seize them all!
You have always been naive, my daughter.
Daelin.
I won't let you do it, Father!
I should have tried harder.
You don't understand!
I understand more than you suspect, my dear.
I wasn't strong enough.
Perhaps in time you will too.
Seize them all!
Daelin knows that the Horde must be crushed outright. They have established a base here, they have established a city here, but it needs to end here. And so he usurps control over Theramore. Now, Jaina actually helps those that were imprisoned escape, and the Horde unites its forces. They start recruiting the Stonewall Ogres, and they're getting ready to siege Theramore. However, because the Horde fought back and pushed the Alliance back, Daelin was able to... However, because the Horde pushed the Alliance forces back to Theramore, Daelin was able to make a naval barricade around the city, preventing the Horde from launching a naval attack or a counterattack. What Daelin doesn't prepare for is that his daughter is going to be instrumental in the Horde's attack on the city. She comes to the conclusion that this conflict is going to have such a massive loss of life on both sides because of her father's and the people he's brought with him, the Kul Tiras troops, the soldiers of Kul Tiras, including Lord Ashvane, Priscilla Ashvane's husband, this vendetta that they have against the orcs. And from everything they've seen, they can't see past that pure curtain of hate. Rexxar and Thrall lead the Horde forces into Theramore because of Jaina, and they actually try to reason with Daelin before a battle breaks out, and it ends with Rexxar dealing the killing blow on Daelin Proudmoore.
But there he found upon those distant shores enemies on the rise. But when he faced those savage foes, his daughter stood aside.
Now this is where Jaina is kneeling next to Daelin's body, asking him, why didn't he listen? Why didn't you listen, Father?
Father, why wouldn't you listen?
And Rexxar tells her to remember her father for the warrior that he was. Now, when the people of Kul Tiras learn of Daelin's death, they're angry, and they demand vengeance, and they ask the Alliance for help. But because of the repercussions from the Third War and everything that happened in Lordaeron, and all of that taking precedence, nothing happens.
The Alliance? Ha! Where were they when we begged for their help? When our husbands and sons and brothers were slaughtered at Theramore?
In their frustration and their anger, they isolate themselves from the Alliance, and Catherine Proudmoore, Daelin's wife, becomes the Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras. And for the longest time, we don't hear anything from the island of Kul Tiras in terms of their connections to the Alliance. Now, years later, Jaina is still haunted by this betrayal, because she herself has been betrayed countless times by the Horde. The same Horde that she vouched for, the same Horde that she stood aside for to let into her city to take down her father. In the song Daughter of the Sea, the entire lyrics of it have been rewritten about Jaina. Beware, beware, the daughter of the sea, the one who stood aside and let the Lord Admiral die. And in the Warbringers episode, Daelin serves as the ferryman for this haunting memorial journey that she goes on through the wreckage of Theramore with all the bloated floating corpses and the ghosts in the skies. And he guides her to a place in the water where his ship sank. Jaina's dad's boat sank. It's her dad's boat, in case you didn't catch that. And she necromances it out of the water, apparently. And it's kind of it's not the first step for Daelin and Jaina's healing, because Daelin's dead. Like, this is not Daelin haunting her. This is the memory of him haunting her. But there's this sort of almost this moment of Daelin was right.
I'm listening now. Father.
And Jaina is now so angry at the Horde that she's now using her dad's boat. She's going home. Of course, her family doesn't welcome her. We're not going to talk about the whole Kul Tiras plot. What we will talk about is the memory of his death and how it lingers in Kul Tiras, and how she's not welcome, and how she's imprisoned and outcast by her own family, by her own mother. And in the very climactic ending of the Jaina plotline in 8.0 with Thros, we see Catherine realizing that maybe Jaina just didn't step aside. Maybe Daelin was so consumed by hatred and vengeance, as Jaina has been recently. You know, Jaina threatens to totally flatten Orgrimmar. Jaina threatens to, you know, the Purge of Dalaran. Jaina has succumbed to this terrible anger and vengeance several times, much like her dad.
Father, no!
Forgive me. You couldn't save him from himself. I should have made him see his sin.
Do you really think you can cast aside your guilt so easily?
And Catherine sees Jaina begging him to stand down, and Daelin simply dismissing her as a naive child. We see her crying next to his body, saying, "Why didn't you listen? Why didn't you listen?" Which she later says in the song, "I'm listening now, Father." And we realize that Daelin's own hatred couldn't be stopped. The loss of his son and the loss of everything at the hands of the Horde blinded him so much by rage. And Catherine, of course, simply saw it as her husband was dead. She didn't see anything else, and in this moment, we kind of get this finality between Catherine and Jaina, and Catherine tells her to forgive her father, forgive herself, and forgive her father for all those mistakes, because Daelin is the one who got himself killed, not Jaina. Now, future speculation on a dead character? What? Well, where is his soul? And with the whole idea that we're going to the Shadowlands, or we're going to go to the realm of the dead, or something to do with the dead, Blizzard has an amazing opportunity to visit a lot of old characters. Now, I know some of you might groan and roll your eyes, great, bringing dead characters back. We're not bringing them back, we're going to the spirit realm, we're going to the dead realm. I would love an encounter with a character down there in the dead realm that has no chance of coming back, but they're still a presence in the afterlife, and they gotta help us. Maybe they send us on a ghost poop quest. I don't know. But it would be so cool to see many of these old faces, including Daelin Proudmoore. I would love the opportunity to see Daelin Proudmoore as a conscious, sentient spirit have a conversation with his daughter about everything that happened. Sort of a finality between them, or maybe he's still consumed by rage. Now, on that note, Death Knights, this part's weird in terms of canonization. Death Knights have to claim the essence of hatred from the Shadowlands, which is part of his soul in Legion, and it's one of those table quests, one of the mission board quests, which we can't take those non-canon, but it's kind of weird because paladins get sent to alternate Auchindoun to get something from Nyami there, but there's no access to alternate Auchindoun. The mission tables are kind of weird, where they provide a lot of interesting information, especially with islands and all the implications there, but it's weird that Death Knights get specifically sent to track down the essence of hatred specifically found in Daelin Proudmoore. It's weird. His NPC ID is in the game, was actually added in the game in Legion, and it's part of the mission board quest, but it's also part of a series of ID strings that were potentially tied to Skyhold. And at some point, there may have been a point up in Skyhold for the Warrior questline, because it's the Warrior Heaven, to see the spirits of these legendary warriors. Blizzard later changed it, saying the spirits of these legendary orc heroes and human heroes shouldn't really be appearing in Odin's Citadel, especially orc heroes, when it's mostly for Vrykul. But there's a lot of ghosts that appeared. Thoris Trollbane, not Death Knight version, but like living ghost version. Varian Rin's in there. You've got Daelin Proudmoore. A whole bunch of old dead names were not supposed to, but were tied some way to Skyhold, which is kind of interesting, but of course that never came to fruition. On the topic of Daelin's soul, and this is spoilers for the 8.0 War campaign, so if you haven't done that yet, Horde or Alliance, stop watching, or just skip ahead by a few minutes. The whole Derek situation. Derek being now an undead, now part of the Forsaken. He's been raised by the Valkyr and supposedly not mind-controlled by Sylvanas, but what could that mean if we go to the Shadowlands and Derek starts taking a more active role fighting alongside, likely the Alliance, but we won't get into that. What if he comes in contact with his dad? Now you've got Jaina Proudmoore, Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras. You've got your mom still alive, Tandred's still alive, and Derek's kind of alive. You know, how cool would it be to have a full Proudmoore reunion? Even if just for a moment, that'd be cool. I'd like to see Mark Addy do some wholesome Proudmoore moments. But could that lead to something? Could the soul of Daelin Proudmoore be a potential future storyline in the Shadowlands and associated with Derek in some way? Who knows? I don't think we're going to ever see Daelin resurrected, but, you know, his soul's out there. Or maybe he's resurrected. Maybe Daelin Proudmoore Forsaken? Oh my god. And the most angry and memed Forsaken ever. Now, not really on the topic of speculation, but let's wrap things up with mentioning Warcraft Reforged. All of Warcraft 3 is being revamped, or most of Warcraft 3 is being revamped, which means we may see all of this stuff with Daelin and Jaina and Theramore in awesome new model updates. And with new model updates comes new voice actors, you know. No disrespect to the old Daelin, but like a lot of the old voice acting back in the day, you know, it's a classic, it's great, but, you know, there's so much better performance. I'm not going to say it's bad, because it's going to upset some people, and people go, no, the classics are always better, but come on. Daelin being voiced by Mark Addy in a Warcraft Reforged, like, how is none of that better than what we got back in the day? Nothing will replace what we got back in the day. It's a classic. But we're reforging it. Come on. Let's get Laura Bailey and Mark Addy having some real daughter-dad moments, just yelling at each other. Let's have all these epic moments that I just talked about in HD Reforged formats. And of course, it would bring more memes. So what's not to like, right? And of course, it would bring more Daddy Daelin memes. So what's not to like, right? Right. Doesn't matter what you think. It's right, because these memes are everything. And with that, guys, we have come to an end to Lost Codex Legends, Daelin Proudmoore. Now, I hope you guys are enjoying this format. I hope you guys are enjoying these kinds of videos. This week, we've done the Classic Edition Thrall, and now we've done Daelin, who isn't a Classic Edition, but happens to be an old classic character. We talk about Battle for Azeroth. And I think we might do that format a little bit going forward. We'll have a Classic Edition of Lost Codex Legends and a not Classic Edition, whether it's relevant to current lore or previous lore, but not relevant to Classics coming out soon, right? So we gotta focus on Classic. So let me know what you guys think about this format. All the video editing you see is a current work in progress, a learning curve by me. I'm rather new to editing, so let me know what you guys think of all this, what you would like to see different in future videos, or what you think is working. And we'll be back next week with more Lost Codex Legends. Special shout out to Shandryn and Laytis, of course, for their awesome notes and script writing for this episode. Thank you guys. Shout out to Sage for the feedback and the encouragement for these videos and thumbnail commentary and all that kind of stuff. For those of you interested in special lore facts, behind the scenes pictures, and merchandise shots, head on over to instagram.com/thelostcodex. One of our moderators, the lovely Ishura, is posting these awesome lore facts here, presenting just little tidbits of lore in a sort of in-world, in-character format, as if transcribed by one of the faculty members of the Lost Codex. If this was a real organization in Azeroth, these would be some of the notes taken by the lore keepers there. She also posts merchandise photos and behind-the-scenes photos. If you really want to know what's going on behind the scenes and you want to have an impact on our major big lore videos that we make, and you want to see behind the scenes photos and commentary and brief scripts, head on over to patreon.com/The Lost Codex. We have several reward tiers there. Our patrons are the ones who help make this channel a reality and help make this channel continue to grow and put out further content. So huge thank you to all of our patrons for your amazing continued support. You can also find us on Twitter, where we'll be doing a giveaway for Classic next week, featuring these amazing pins by Frenoni. Frenoni is an amazing community Warcraft artist who sent us these awesome pins to give away. So keep your eyes on Twitter for the giveaway, which hasn't gone live yet, but we'll be posting details very soon. And with that, guys, I bring it all to a close. Thank you so much for your support, your love, your comments, everything. Thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you got, thank you. If you're wondering where the lore videos are, the special, iconic Lost Codex lore videos, the next one's coming. It's in the oven right now. It's cooking. Jeff is putting it all together. You don't put something together in the oven. That was a bad analogy. Ignore that. Jeff is putting it all together. It is currently in production. So stay tuned on that. While he is doing the big final editing part, I am doing these fun, engaging lore videos to sit you guys, tie you guys over until the big meal comes, the big fancy lore video. So stay tuned for that. And with that, guys, I'm bringing it to a close. An actual close this time, not like the 6 previous closes. This is the real close. I promise you. It's ending. Video's over. Go home. Go prepare for Classic. It's all over. Because we'll see you next time for the next episode of Lost Codex Legends.